Hey y'all, Mama Snark here. So today I am going to do a quick little tutorial video on the easy cheat way to make Louisiana gumbo. Step number one, no tomatoes. If you have tomatoes, put it back in the pantry. Use it another day, another recipe. Do not put gumbo or do not put tomatoes in a Louisiana gumbo recipe. Don't do it. Throw it away. So, unfortunately, my mom passed away when I was 20, like right after I turned 20. So, I never got the chance to get her gumbo recipe from her. Like, she never wrote it down because she had been making it for so many years, she just knew it by memory. So, after she passed, and after hubby and I got married, when I think we were 28 when we got married. So, like a year after we got married, I called my aunt because hers was the closest to my mom's recipe that I could remember, like taste wise. It just wasn't quite the same. So I got her recipe from her, and then over the past like 3 or 4 years, hubby and I have just kind of kept tweaking it and tweaking it from like my memory of what I can remember my mom putting in her gumbo and like what it tasted like. And as of last year or the year before, we have finally perfected this recipe. So this is our like super easy like cheat way to make Louisiana gumbo, because if any of my Louisiana friends are watching, they're probably going to be cringing because I don't make my own roux. Don't do it. I don't have the patience. In order to make a roux, you have to have a lot of patience. Not only do you have to have a lot of patience, but in order to make a dark roux, which is what my gumbo requires, you have to have a lot of patience, and I don't have it. Also, my mom never used her own roux. Like, she just didn't make her own roux. That wasn't a thing. So the number one ingredient in the cheap version is Savoy's roux. Real Cajun, dark roux. You want to make sure it's the dark. And you can find this on Amazon, and I'll link that down in the description box below. It's a lot more expensive on Amazon. This is like $3 or $4, I think, in the local grocery stores around here. This is the 16 ounce. And I think it's like 15 for a 2-pack on Amazon. But this is the key ingredient to making a super easy cheat Louisiana gumbo. So if you can see here, this is our recipe that we've tried to perfect over the years. This is attempt number 1. Attempt number 2, 3. Finally, our perfected recipe right here that we have. So all of the ingredients that are going to be... Whoops. All of the ingredients in our gumbo. The second cheat version, or key ingredient for the cheat version, is the Guidry's Fresh Cuts Creole seasoning. So I don't think you can get these in the grocery stores up north. The closest thing you'll probably get to this is, I think, the Pick Sweet and the freezer section has like kind of the trifecta, like cut up, pre-chopped, seasoned, like onions and bell pepper combo, which is basically what this is. It just has a little bit like extra oomph to it that us Cajuns like to have. So the ingredients in here, see, I don't even think it has it listed. It's basically like onions, bell pepper, celery, garlic, and a little bit of pepper or a little bit of parsley in it. So this combined with your Savoy's roux is going to make your gumbo base. Other ingredients you'll need to have: 4 containers, let's see, this is the 32 ounce, 4 32 ounce containers of the chicken broth, any brand. Sorry, my dogs are barking, girls. So any brand, 4 32 ounce containers of chicken broth, salt, pepper, gumbo filet, and I think there's another brand my mom used to use. It came in a glass jar, but Zatarain's works just as well. Paprika, some cayenne pepper. The olive oil is just to do the chicken and sausage, which we'll get to that step later on. So you don't actually put olive oil in your gumbo. And then Worcestershire sauce. And then I don't do seafood gumbo because I don't particularly like the taste of it. So I grew up on the chicken and sausage gumbo. Our main preference for sausage in Louisiana, or in our household, is the Manda sausage, particularly the green onion Manda sausage. It is the best sausage in the world. I don't know if you can get this in grocery stores up north. So if you can't, I mean, any kind of sausage should do the trick. It's just not going to taste quite the same. I will say stay away from Richard's. if you have that where you are, because it's a little bit too greasy for our liking. And I forgot to show garlic. Garlic is also an ingredient. Again, cheat version, I use the already minced stuff instead of chopping it myself. I know my sister-in-law is cringing right now. Okay, so the first thing that I typically start with, because I will say my husband is actually the one that does like the actual cooking of the gumbo. He basically cooks anything that requires any amount of patience in our house because I don't have patience. It's not one of my strong suits. I just don't have it. So anything that requires like patience, low heat, stuff like that, he does the cooking because I'm the one that just kind of cranks it up high and hurries up and tries to whip it out. Or I do a lot of crock-pot cooking. That is my specialty. That's where I soar. So he does the actual cooking of the gumbo. My job usually whenever we do gumbo, and this one is kind of like a half and half split among Louisiana residents on whether or not like what you use as your gumbo base. A lot of people prefer rice as their gumbo base. That's kind of the traditional, like anytime you see gumbo on a cooking show or anything like that, they use rice. The other half, where we reside, is using potato salad as your base. And of course it's homemade potato salad. We don't do store-bought, we make it ourselves. And so typically I'll make the potato salad and my husband does the actual gumbo cooking. I have the day off today. It's around like 2:00 p.m. Hubby will get home around 4:30 or so, and he'll start the gumbo whenever he gets home. Before that, since I have the time and I'm here, before he gets home, I'm gonna go ahead and get the potato salad ready and just get that in the fridge ready to go. So I've got my eggs boiling here in our egg cooker. And of course you can boil your eggs on the stove if you want to do that, but I've got that going in the egg cooker. So I'm doing about 6 boiled eggs. And then I'm going to get potatoes peeled, rinsed, peeled, and chopped up and put in the pot here, ready to go to get my potatoes boiled. So these are, I only have russet potatoes. I typically like to do a mixture of red potatoes and russets, but the grocery store was completely sold out of red potatoes. So it's just gonna be made of nothing but russet potatoes. So it'll be not quite the same, but good enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these peeled, chopped, and in this pot ready to go. All right, so I've got my hard-boiled eggs peeled and in my big Pyrex bowl, and I've got the potatoes chopped, covered with water and a little bit of salt. I'm going to boil those until fork tender, and then I'll strain those and put them in here with my hard-boiled eggs and show you the rest of the ingredients I put in that. So I will add, when you make a pot of gumbo, this is our gumbo pot. It literally only sees the light of day for gumbo because I make all of our soups here in the crock pot because, like I said, I have no patience. So whenever you make a pot of gumbo, I mean, it's going to be like up to here with liquid. So it makes a lot of gumbo, and I will do rice for our leftovers. So whenever you make a big pot, unless you have a ton of people over, you're hosting people, you're going to have a lot of leftovers. So we'll freeze like a big container of it and take that out to thaw 2 days before we want to eat it the next time we have a cold snap come through, and I'll make a pot of rice to go with the leftovers. Hi to a socket dog. Future me. Popping in to add this clip really quick to show you how much leftovers you get from that pot that we made. So I have these little take-along Rubbermaid containers. One for me, one for hubby for leftovers, and we'll share that with the kids. And then I also have an extra portion that I will freeze. That'll be kind of single servings. Again, we'll share that with the kids. That will just cook like a pot of rice to go with. And then I have this other giant tub that has enough for 2 servings in that bowl. So like we'll defrost that for 2 days and then put half of it in a bowl with rice, and then the other person will just eat the rest of it in there. And then I also have a small little bowl for me to take for a little work brunch tomorrow, and I'll put potato salad in here and dump the potato salad after I heat the gumbo up. So yeah, you get a ton of gumbo. So I only do potato salad for like that first initial cooking because it takes a lot of work. So we'll use rice. We prefer the potato salad, but we'll use rice for the leftovers. All right, so potatoes have been boiled until fork tender. Like I said, I don't really time them. I just bring water to a boil and do so until they have a little bit of fork tenderness to them. So I'm going to take those, they've been strained, and dump those in my bowl with my eggs. Yips. And the camera is fogging up. So what goes into our potato salad? Mayo, yellow mustard, salt, pepper, which I don't have here, I'll have to get that. Some dill relish and sweet relish. And this is something that my aunt actually had in her recipe. My mom never did this, but hubby and I absolutely loved it. We put some green sliced olives. It gives it just a little bit more salt. And I love salt and we love green olives. We even put green olives on our pizza when we make pizza at home. So I'm going to set you up here and just mash that up and put all of the ingredients in it. Okay, let me get salt and pepper. So I'm gonna do salt. And I don't really measure any of this. This is all just kind of eyeballing it. So I guess it comes out a little bit differently every time. This is my dill relish. And I don't add a whole lot of relish because I do add the salad olives, which gives it that tang and salt as well. Dill. My olives. Now I actually put kind of a ton of olives in it. But again, hubby and I and the kids absolutely love, well, Weezer, Man Cub doesn't, but we love green olives very, very much. So I'm going to put a good bit of those in there. And then you just take your masher and mash everything together. All right, and that is our gumbo potato salad. All right, so first step of the actual gumbo is to get my sausage cut up and in the pot to brown. And you want just a little bit of olive oil in the pot so that it doesn't stick. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that sausage cut up and in the pot first. All right, sausage is chopped up. You can see the green onion bits. This Manda sausage is the best. So after that, I'm going to, casualty. Get that in my pot. Trying to do this one-handed. All right, so you're gonna get that in the pot on about medium heat, and you just wanna get it kind of browned. So you just wanna kind of brown it because it is going to finish cooking in like your actual gumbo. So you don't wanna overcook it. So I'm gonna get that browned, and then once that's brown, I'm gonna put it here on a plate and let it rest while I get my chicken chopped up and seasoned and ready to go. So on my chicken, I'm gonna get it chopped up into bits, and I'm going to sprinkle cayenne pepper, paprika, and a little bit of salt and pepper on the chicken itself before I brown it. All right, got the sausage browning nicely, and you just want to kind of give it a stir to, you know, make it even and to not burn. And while that's cooking, I've got my chicken cut up here, and I'm just going to do my seasonings now, which you're not going to be able to see a whole lot, but I'll get kind of what I can. So with the cayenne pepper, you want to do very sparingly, especially if you have small kids that you're trying to get to eat the gumbo, because the cayenne pepper will definitely make it spicy. So I just want to do a little dusting on the chicken breast here. As you can see, I have kind of a light dusting. It's not, you know, too sparingly used, but it's not a whole bunch either. Stir the sausage up. And then I'm going to do a little paprika. Just kind of dust it on there. So that one I do a little bit more liberally because it's not spicy. It just helps add some wanted flavor. A little salt. A little bit of pepper. If you have this Kirkland's pepper, you need to watch out because it pours out very, very quickly. Alright, so that is what the chicken looks like, and I will do the same thing to the other side after I flip it before I put it in the pot. Meanwhile, got some good sausage flavor going on here. So by the time I get finished doing the other side of the chicken, beans, the sausage will be ready to come out. You can see on some of it that it's getting that good color there. So I've got my sausage out and nicely browned here. Next, I'm going to be adding my chicken, and I'm actually going to be using a fork because I don't want the excess seasonings on the board to end up in there. So you can see the pot is nice and brown from that sausage, and the chicken's pretty much just going to cook in that sausage, like, leftover bits. For the chicken, you also don't want to cook until it's, like, you know, overdone, because it is going to cook a little bit in that broth when it simmers in the gumbo. You just want to get it cooked enough to not give anyone food poisoning. So once I get all of my chicken bits in there, I'll pull that aside and just put it on top of the gumbo, and we'll start the roux. So the chicken's about halfway done. You can see I'm just kind of flipping it with a spatula. And you just want to make sure that you cook out all of the pink bits. Like I said, you don't want it overdone because it is going to go in the gumbo like soup and finish cooking. Alright, so chicken is pretty much done. I've just got a little bit longer. I'm kind of breaking up like the bigger chunks and just kind of confirming that it's white in the middle because you don't want anyone to get sick from food poisoning. Alright, so chicken is out and it's just hanging out with the sausage. Good news! Hubby's home! Yay! He's my cook. So I've been doing this all when he normally does it. So the next step is after you cook your chicken, you're going to want to drop your temp down to, yeah, probably to like a 2, 3-ish, probably a 2. So I'm just going to leave the pot as is with like the leftover sausage grease and the chicken seasonings in it. And then, so the recipe for a jar of roux, like whenever you get your jar, it says to add, oh, it doesn't even have it on here. Oh, here it goes. Sorry, let me turn that about. It says to add 4 heaping tablespoons. We use the entire jar. That's how you make a good, thick, dark Louisiana gumbo. So we will put an entire jar of that roux in there. And we have experimented with different, like, trying to just do a little bit at first and then kind of add it as we go. And I told him my mom used to just dump the whole jar in, and he didn't believe me. But eventually we ended up just keep adding until we ended up with a whole jar anyway. So now we just start out.
My family's not from the South, so we didn't have a family recipe.
Yeah, his family's from Illinois. And like I said, I've been trying to, over the years piece together my mom's recipe from what I can remember and from what my aunt gave me. And we've just kind of tweaked it over the years until we got it to taste like my mom's. And an entire jar of roux is what that recipe calls for. Also, I will add that the seasoning of the chicken that we do is not my mom's recipe. That's actually his coworker that gave us that kind of seasoning recipe. I think my mom used to just do Tony's on hers and maybe some salt and pepper. Yes.
Close enough.
Yeah. So you're just going to keep stirring this and keep stirring it until you end up with like a pudding texture. And then once you have that pudding texture, we're going to add our jar of Guidry seasoning, which is that chopped up onion, bell pepper, celery mix. Oh man, that smells good. So the roux is definitely like a dark, thick substance.
We're cheating. It starts off the way it's supposed to look.
Yeah.
That's what it takes a lot of work to do this.
So what I was saying earlier, this is the cheat recipe because I have no patience to sit there and stir a roux. So if you make your roux from scratch, which is what, any respectable Louisiana person probably does, you literally sit there and stir and stir and stir and stir and stir and stir. And if you stop stirring for like half a second to scratch your nose, it's going to burn. So we cheat and just make our roux from the jar. And it comes out perfect that way, and we don't end up with burnt roux and frustration. So he's just going to keep stirring that until it gets to the right consistency, and I'll show you what that looks like before we dump the Guidrys in. So we're getting pretty close to what it needs to look like to dump the Guidrys in. He said it looked a little bit more like brownie batter right now, but you wanted it like a pudding consistency. All right, so we are ready to add in the Guidry seasoning that I was telling you about. And we're going to put that whole thing right on in there.
Stir it all up.
Ooh, it smells good. And then we also need the garlic. So I'm going to quickly grab that and toss in a little bit of garlic. Okay, so I forgot the garlic, so I went and grabbed that and tossed some garlic in there too. So he's just going to stir that up and mix it. You stir it up and mix it for about 10 minutes and get everything just kind of nice and sticky together. And then after that, you want to stir in 2 boxes of that 32-ounce chicken broth. And then once you have those 2 boxes in there, you're just going to simmer that for a while. So I've got to go pick up our kids from school and the babysitters, and he's going to keep working on that.
All right, so we're bringing the Guidry's seasoning, which is basically just onion, bell pepper, some celery, I think some cilantro, and maybe a little garlic in it, up to temperature with the roux that kind of dropped in temperature and got real sticky again because of the cold seasoning mix going into it. So once that gets back up to temperature, we're going to move on to the next step. Alright, so our onions are starting to look like they're cooking down just a little bit, and you don't want to go much further than that because they're going to have plenty of time to cook in the pot. Time to add 2 cans chicken broth. 2 boxes of chicken broth. We've got 32-ounce Walmart special. So just dump that all in there. Start with the first one and get it all mixed up a little bit. And once we get the second one in, we're just going to bring it up to temperature before probably adding a little more and the meat back in. We get our first glimpses of a nice brown texture in the broth. Break everything up. That's why you kind of want to get everything up to temperature before you put the chicken broth, because if not, you're just going to end up pushing around clumps in the liquid for a long time while it comes up to temperature. If you got a little bit of scorching on the bottom, don't worry about it. Just don't char the whole bottom while you're bringing the roux and the seasoning up to temperature, because it will sit here and boil for a couple hours and get that nice and soft and break up and add a little bit to the flavor of the gumbo when it's done. Once you get it all mixed in, you can go up to about a 5 on the stove. Alright, another can. Good and saturated. Alright, I said can. We're doing another 32 ounce box of chicken broth. Depending on how much sodium you like in your diet, you can stop there with the chicken broth and do the rest of the liquid with water. But we tend to be a little unhealthy when it comes to gumbo, so we just go all chicken broth. It tastes better. Just make sure that's good and mixed and bring it back up to temperature. Chicken broth
Over there.
Those two?
Yep. So, got the kids home. Of course, she immediately got her little stool. Oh, and we got this one, of course, sniffing underneath. She immediately pushed her stool up there to help Dad cook. She's a little helper.
I kept saying bring it up to heat and then bring it to a simmer.
Bring it to a simmer? Okay. So, simmering. Oh, so, super important. I learned as a child growing up, when you go in the kitchen to check on the gumbo and you see the lid like this, do not close the lid all the way or it will boil over. Don't touch. Because as a teenager, I think I was like in junior high, I went in just to smell the gumbo in the anticipation to look at it. And when I put the lid back on, I put it all the way on and it bubbled all over the stove. Mom was not happy. You ready for some gumbo tonight? All right, ready to add the meat to it.
Put this back in. Hopefully it's not too cold. This part's always fun because we're going to make some splashes, but it'll be all right.
Oh, we'll film from up high.
Dump that all back in.
Ooh. So you want to stir your...
And then two more cans of chicken broth.
Of the 32 ounce boxes of the chicken broth. So you're going to use...
earlier, if you don't want as much sodium, you can do water at this point instead of chicken broth.
Or the less sodium chicken broth, but I like salt.
I explained that. We like it, the healthy recipe, or the not so healthy recipe when we're doing gumbo.
Alright. And then we stir all that up. And then this is where we add in the filet, the gumbo filet, and the Worcestershire, which I will go grab. Oh, here, hold this. I've got something on my pant leg. Yeah, it was you, loser. You got my leg. So, filet, Worcestershire. Hold on, baby. And then after
How
you
much
do,
did it say?
I don't know. That might have been too much.
That was about right.
Like I said, we typically don't do an exact recipe. We just kind of like eyeball things. So you kind of come up with something different every time. Sometimes you mess up a little bit. Sometimes it's perfect. So after this, you're going to let it simmer for 45 more minutes. And then after that, we will add in the frozen okra. All right, so the last step after we've let it simmer for 45 minutes is to add the frozen okra that we just get at the grocery store. And once
That might be harder to find. This is also known to be optional.
Yeah, okra's optional according to some people. I grew up on okra and have to have it in mine, but if you can't find it, it's not necessary. So after we add the okra, we just let it simmer for about 34 30 to 40 more minutes, and then it's ready to eat.
Yep, dump it in frozen.
I wish y'all had smell-o-vision. This smells amazing. All right, she is ready. Seriously, if you guys could smell this. So if your gumbo is anything other than this color, it's chicken soup. So I'm gonna get a bowl with some potato salad in it and just dish up some gumbo. All right, so I got our bowls of potato salad there. We'll get that a little bit closer. And scoop out. And that is why your stove is a mess when you make gumbo. Some broth. All right, here goes the test. Like I said, it comes out a little bit different every time, so we'll see. That's a good gumbo. You did a good job, hubby. All right, so that is my quick and easy Louisiana gumbo recipe. I know a lot of my Louisianians are cringing right now, but this is what I grew up on, and it is so good. Better than any restaurant gumbo I've ever had. So thank you guys for watching. Hope if you're up north and it is piled in snow, unlike here, it is, what was it, like 65 degrees today? And it's like, oh yeah, this is gumbo weather, because it was like in the 30s when we woke up. So I hope if you decide to make it, it turns out well for you. Let me know in the comments if you give it a try. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you give this video a like and a thumbs up. Hit that notification bell. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and follow along. Thank you guys for watching.